At this point you've probably done a number of townlands, mapped the various borders of them, tagged them and uploaded them. All going well, you won't have come across any particular problems, but in this video I'm just going to go through a few common ones and basically show you how to sort them out in case you do come across them. So I have all the boundaries ready for this particular townland here, Dangan Eiter, I don't know how to pronounce some of these. This one that I pronounced in a previous episode as Demence, I've been told is pronounced as Domain, so there you go. But basically I have all the boundaries ready for this particular townland, so this is the one I'm going to use as an example for showing you some of these errors. So one of the first things I'm going to show you involves bridges, and just to show you part of this boundary here is used by a stream. So I know I've gone through this before in a previous video, but it's worth going through again just because it can be a bit messy. So I'll just show you here. Essentially what you're going to do is, if I turn off my background layer, you can see how close I'm zooming in down here. So I'm essentially only a couple of inches out from the center of the road. So I'm going to add a node to my stream there, fairly close to the bridge, and I'm just going to hit P to split it. Then I'm going to draw away off of that. I'm going to kind of come in at an angle so that you can come back and select this again if need be. Going like this, I'm just going to end up joining the stream and the bridge to each other, which you never want to happen. So I'm going to come in here at an angle, click onto the bridge to join my way from the stream onto the bridge, and then come down here to that point there. So essentially I have my road, I have this new little way here that I've drawn, and then I have this side here of my stream, which essentially, I'll just zoom out here, now gives me a full boundary going around this way here. So that's how you work with bridges, where there's a stream or a river that acts as part of your boundary. And let's say down here I would have another townland. What I would simply do is I would just select my road, select my way, and then select my stream. So I don't need to draw an additional way down here. So that still gives me my complete boundary there. If I just turn off there and zoom out, you'll see I'd have continuous coverage there. And again, if there was another townland here and another townland here, you would essentially do the same. You would draw from here to the bridge and up to that point again. And that way then will be split between a townland here and a townland on this side. So now I've selected all my boundaries here, and I'm going to go through the motions of tagging this townland. I'll just paste that in there, click OK. And this is one particular issue that you may sometimes get. You'll see here I don't have my full loop, which means I don't have a complete boundary, and you can see there's a gap. This is where my gap is in between these two here. So if I go over here and just click anywhere on the map sheet just to deselect every one of those, and what you can do then is you can double click where your gap is, double click on one of those. So it shows me this is one of those, one side of that gap. Then if I click on this, then it'll show me this is the other side. So essentially between these is where my gap is. So if I zoom down in here, essentially this is the little bit that I'm missing. So how you fix this then, if you see here on this side, you have a couple of buttons here. So you've like a blue and a pink and a blue and a pink here. So what this blue line represents is essentially the blue line here that you've selected. And the pink represents what's over on this side. So what this means is essentially I want to add what's here above this blue line. If I select this one, I want to add what's here below the blue line. So to close this gap, I'm basically going to select this one to have it slot in between these two here, essentially above this one. So click that, and there you go. There's your full boundary then. Then simply all you do is select all your boundary or all your ways and just apply the outer roll and click OK, and that's it sorted. So in my earlier videos, one thing I mentioned was that you need to select all your ways in sequence to make up your boundary. So essentially you're drawing a circle. So I'll just show you here, if you don't do that in this particular issue here, I've selected them out of sequence. I've still selected every single boundary, but they're selected outside or out of sequence. So how you can actually fix this is you can either just hit cancel and you'll be given the option here to discard. I'm going to say cancel, continue editing. So you can either cancel and just reselect everything again in sequence and just go through the motions of adding your Townland again, or, and this can sometimes be a bit messy, you can see here I have a gap here, and then I have a single way here that isn't connecting properly to anything. So what I can do is over here I can move this one down. So if I press it down and down again, so now I have 3 pieces here and 5 pieces here. So, and this is what I mean, sometimes it's easier to just simply cancel and just go back and reselect them again. Sometimes you can be messing an awful lot trying to get these actually into sequence. So I'm going to select these. Actually, I'm just looking at this now and I can't, oh yes I can. No. So yeah, so select those and now you see this is the thing, it can get so messy trying to do this. Most of the time you're just as well off just to hit cancel and hit discard and just deselect everything and just go back and reselect them again in order. Sometimes it's easy to fix, sometimes it's not. Typically I would just go back and reselect everything again. So now I'm going to show you if when you're going around and you're selecting all your ways and you select them all in sequence, but if you accidentally select an additional way, so essentially down here I had split this road at roughly this node here, so essentially this is a separate way here, but if I show you what it looks like in the relations window, you'll see essentially I have my full boundary, but I have an additional piece stuck on here. The easiest way of fixing that, select it, remove, and there you go. So then you just select all your ways, add your outer roll, and just click OK. So this one is similar to the previous issue, but this time I've left these as a single joined way. So when I go into tag my Townland, essentially it looks like I have a gap. So if I unselect everything and click on here, it'll show me that that's one side of my boundary. If I click on here, then it shows me that's the other side of my boundary. So essentially it's showing me I've an excess part of a boundary here which is outside of essentially the circle of the boundary that you're drawing. So how you'll fix that is you come down to here, select your way, select your node, hit P, and there you go, fixed. Now sometimes what may happen is in the relations window it may select this side, in which case what you would do is simply select the part that looks like it's showing on its own and simply remove it, come over, select the correct part which is now showing over here, and you're going to add it in, and there you go, it slots straight into there. and then you have everything. You can add your outer role and just click OK. So this time I'm going to show you what an error looks like if you try to upload a Townland without assigning this outer role to it. So essentially, say if you just went along and did this, you had your full boundary, but you didn't apply this role to it, and you simply clicked OK, you'd still get the color, but when you try to upload, then you get a load of errors down here. So essentially it's saying role should be outer, role outer missing. You get an awful lot of errors here. So essentially what it's saying is you've created a relation, but you haven't said whether these boundaries are the inner or the outer, or what kind of a boundary they are. So you can click continue upload, but there's absolutely no point, because essentially this particular Townland is essentially broken. It's not going to work in any software or anything. It's essentially going to look like a broken Townland. So what you want to do is you want to hit cancel, and you'll see then through the JOSM validator it's basically highlighted everywhere that there's an issue. So basically it's highlighted your entire boundary. So to fix it, all you need to do is select one piece of boundary, and you'll see it over here. And sometimes actually this will be a better one here where it's shared with a stream. Now this one's even better where it's shared with another Townland on this side. So what you'll see is you may see a tag up here saying waterway stream or whatever else, and you'll see a member of and the Townlands that your way is a member of. So we need to fix this one here, Danganiter or 8 or whatever it's called. So you're simply going to hit on edit, and that then will open them all up for you, and it will allow you to simply select them all, click here and just apply the outer role, click OK, and then when you try and upload, you will go straight through to the upload window and simply put in your Townland name and upload. And there, so we got no errors that time. So that's essentially what happens if you create a Townland without the outer role in it, and how to fix it. So sometimes when you're tagging Townlands and you're going along, everything seems fine, there doesn't seem to be any issues. However, sometimes what may happen, and I've done it myself, is you may end up leaving tiny little gaps. So again, I'll use this bridge as an example, as this is where I've actually done it once or twice. So as I mentioned before, you could have, say, a Townland in here, a Townland in here, another Townland here, and one here. So you could essentially have 4 Townlands divided across a river, stream, and a bridge. So you would go through the motions of adding this small way that I mentioned before. But let's say you went along and you added, I'll just do it here now, you added a way that went along like that, and then for whatever reason you came along and added another one like this and another one up the other side. So that you essentially had a small little gap just inside here. As I'm zoomed in so close here, essentially on the ground this is only probably what, a couple of centimeters apart. Like, we're talking about the white line in the road here being either side of this. So that's, in terms of real world distance, that's what you're talking about. So you're never actually going to spot this when you're doing your regular mapping, and it's a mistake anybody can make. I've made similar mistakes to this. So one easy way of actually spotting this is on a website called townlands.ie. This was created by an OpenStreetMap Ireland member, Rory. So basically this is what we use for tracking all the Townlands that are being tagged, and you can see how many. It breaks them down by, it gives an overall here, and then it breaks them down by county. And you've got various things like how much we've done and how long it'll take us. take us to finish. So you can see here various progress bars for each particular county, and then roughly time estimates for each county then as well, based on the current progress. So one very useful thing in this, if I say just click into Galway here, just let this load, you have what's called here debug. So if I just open that up in a separate window here, and what you get is a selection of maps. My connection is very poor today, so these may take a moment to actually load. So you get a selection of maps, land and water not covered by townlands, not covered by civil parishes, and so on. The one you're mainly concerned with is this particular one here, the very top one. So you can see here, there's a large area here where there's been townlands mapped, but there's a small bit just in here which is just around Dunmore, and I will be leaving a bit around Tuam as well, just purely because they're slightly difficult, so I need to try and get better maps again to see if I can map those. But if you do happen to leave one of these small little gaps that I mentioned, it'll show up here. So essentially it'll show up something like this. You'll see small gaps. Now, something that looks like this on this map here, when you actually zoom into it, might only be 2 or 3 inches in the real world, but it'll show up clear as day on this map. So this is very, very useful for spotting if you've happened to make any errors along the way and leave gaps anywhere. So that's townlands.ie. Go into the county that you're mapping and look for the debug link. Essentially this one here. It will be up at the top of the page. So those of you that were paying attention or pretty observant may have noticed something down here, down in this corner here. If I zoom down in, what you'll see is the road coming up here, and there's a sharp angle in it, but this angle is no longer on the road. If I turn off the map sheet there, you can see there's actually been a realignment done on the road. So essentially what I've tagged as my boundary here is not correct. Essentially the boundary should be coming down and across here. So how you can fix this, essentially if you're mapping it from an original state, i.e. you haven't created your boundary at this stage, then you'd simply be coming down and across. But because I have my boundary already in place and I've spotted this, what I'm going to do is show you how to address it. So first off, you can see here that where we are on this sheet, the imagery or the map sheet is slightly skewed. So what you can do is you can go in here into imagery offset, and this is a plugin that you need to install. And once this window pops up, you can essentially drag the background imagery around. So I've got a road up here, a stream down here, and a stream coming up here, and a road down this way. So I can essentially use those to orientate this correctly. So yeah, I've got more or less the middle of the road here, stream here, and this road going up here, all aligned. So that tells me essentially I should be coming from about this node here to here and up essentially to about this node here. So you can do it that way if need be. However, I'm going to hit cancel on that, and I'm going to turn off my background or turn off my map sheet and use my satellite imagery, because we know this is correct anyway, so I don't need to go changing that background layout. So first off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select first node here, hit P to split the way, so essentially I have 2 separate parts now. And then where it comes up, I'm going to select that node and hit P again. Now I'm going to simply draw a way that comes down where that road used to be. essentially join them up, straighten that out. So now if I click on this section here and I select my townland that it's a member of and hit edit, so here I have it's highlighted as being the one that's selected, so I'm going to remove that one, so hit remove, and now I'm going to click off of it and select the one that I want to add, which is now over here. And what I'm going to do is use these options here. So I'm going to be selecting this button to basically, again, the blue line equals the line that I've selected over here, and the pink is essentially the one that's on this side. So I'm essentially saying insert it underneath this one. So I'm going to hit that, and again that gives me my loop. But don't forget to add your outer roll. Click OK. Add your outer roll and then click OK. And then what you see is this is no longer part of your boundary, and this is now part of your boundary. So if you try uploading then, no errors, no issues, go ahead and upload. Lastly, just some tips on trying to figure out townland boundaries on some hard to read sheets. So it's an unfortunate thing, but not all of these sheets are of the same quality. So if I zoom in here, for example, you can see this one stands out a mile compared to the others around it. I zoom in here, and just wait for this to load. So you can see the quality difference there between the two. Even these large digits here are actually quite difficult to read. If I just drag up along here. So for example, I can see a townland boundary coming down here, cutting across and coming down along here, but where it can get confusing is when you see a line like this against a line like that against a line like that, which would typically look an awful lot like a townland boundary on another sheet, you know, so it can be quite difficult. So when you're faced with issues like that, what I typically try and do is essentially just scroll around the sheet. Apologies, my connection again is very slow tonight. This will load, I'll be able to show you. So essentially I would just zoom out, scroll around the sheet a bit, and I try and stay away from townlands that are like say 400 or 500 acres. Try and find ones that are in or around 100 or maybe max maybe 200 acres. Typically they'll be smaller ones, easier ones to see. And as well, don't forget that your first letter and last letter of your townlands always coincide with your townland boundaries. So for example, this one here, by Unit Beg, I think it is, you can see the spacing on the letters against this one here where the spacing is much closer together, and that's simply done just so that the name of the townland will actually butt up against the boundaries themselves. So you can actually make out the boundary coming up here along this side, and you can make out the boundary coming up along this side here as well. So what I would look for, as I mentioned, was smaller townlands, and simply map those ones first. So I'm only finding 250s, 280s. Again, apologies about my connection. But essentially I'd map those smaller townlands first, and even if they're not beside each other, I'd just continue on and map those, and then try gradually move up to bigger townlands where I can hopefully see them a bit clearer. Plus as well, what you will find is, I'll just zoom out here again. You would say fill in one small townland up here, another one over here, maybe one down here, one over this side, and so on. And what you'll find is you'll start to, just by mapping those ones out and having your townlands map style on, you'll it'll actually aid you in seeing the remaining boundaries. Plus as well, again, don't forget about the naming, the first and last letter butting up against the boundaries themselves. So the other tip as well, when you're looking for your boundaries on hard to reach sheets, is on other sheets I mentioned how drawing boundaries sometimes can be difficult in bogs. Well, on the poor to read sheets, the boundaries on the bogs are a godsend because they're clear as day. You can see these, and I'm zoomed out quite far on these, and I can easily follow these boundaries. And I can even see this one splits down here and comes down this way. I zoom out and let me see if I can find another bog. Yeah, down here. See if there's any boundaries along it. Yeah, so you can see them clear as day, whereas when you're in something like this, it can be very difficult to actually make out some of these. So that's it for this episode. That's all the tips and tricks and bits of troubleshooting I can think of. If there are any other bits that I do think of, I'll add additional videos, essentially as 8.1, 8.2 and so on. For more information on mapping townlands in Ireland, go to the OpenStreetMap wiki and search for mapping townlands. And on the search page you will see a link to the main section and also to the Townlands video series. On the Townlands video series section you will find a summary for each episode, links to each individual episode, and also a list of links for any software or websites mentioned in each episode.